Hello dear students, my name is Dragana Radoјčić and I am an English teacher. It's my pleasure to share this presentation with you. Our topic is the present passive. The first thing that we need to do when we talk about passive is to make the difference between active and passive. So, what is the definition of an active voice? When you want to talk about a person or a thing that performs an action, you use active. For example, they sell books on the street. And when you want to focus on a person or a thing that is affected by the action, you use passive. For example, books are sold on the street. The best way to explain any grammatical structure is to use the examples. So let's pay attention to the following one. In this picture, you can see the subject, the photographer. What is he doing? Photographs is the verb. And then we have direct object. In this case, it's the girl. This sentence is expressed with an active voice, where the subject performs an action. Now, when we try to transform this sentence, direct object comes at the first place or the first position in the sentence, and this direct object now becomes the subject of the sentence. Then, the subject from previous sentence becomes passive agent, and the verb photographs is transformed from an active into the passive, and is photographed again has the function of the verb. This structure, the girl is photographed by the photographer, where the girl performs the function of the subject, is photographed is the verb, and by the photographer performs the function of a passive agent, is expressed by passive voice, where the subject suffers the action. Now, let's pay attention to the following example. Here is an active verb in the present simple, likes. We've got here the sentence, everybody likes the film The Lion King, where everybody is subject, likes is an active verb, and the film The Lion King is direct object. Now, let's change the sentence into the passive. When we make an active sentence passive, the object becomes the subject. Now, the film The Lion King now comes at the first position in a sentence and becomes the subject. Likes, which is an active verb, becomes is liked. Now it's got the passive form. And everybody now becomes the object or the passive agent in the sentence. Now you can see the difference between these two sentences. Active sentence, everybody likes the film The Lion King, is transformed into the passive one in the following way. The film The Lion King is liked by everybody. Now, to make the passive use the verb to be in the same tense as the original sentence, here it is the present simple tense. And the third form of past participle of the main verb. If you need to mention who's doing the action, use by to introduce the doer of the action. Is liked is present simple passive because is in the present simple. Now we make an active sentence passive when we want to put an information at the beginning of the sentence because it is more important. For example, look at the following active sentence. Tourists spend a lot of money in London. Now, tourists is important. In the passive sentence, a lot of money is spent in London by tourists. In this case, a lot of money is important. Now, let's focus on form. The present simple passive has the following structure: subject plus present simple of the verb to be and past participle. Positive form is as follows. Look at example. Spanish is spoken in South America. When we want to make a negative statement, Spanish isn't spoken in Germany. And when we want to put the questions, is Spanish spoken in South America? It means that we put the auxiliary verb at the first position in a question. And we can as well use short answers. Yes, it is. No, it isn't. Now, are Spanish and Portuguese spoken in South America? Yes, they are, or no, they are not. Now, can you remember the past participles of these verbs? Let's now try to fill in these blanks. This is the infinitive, find, and its past participle is, as you see, found. Eat is an infinitive or the base form of the verb. Its past participle is eaten, as you say. Teach becomes taught. Cut has got the same form, even in infinitive or in past participle. Read, it's got the same form. Read, but it is pronounced in a different way. Read. So, the infinitive is read and the past participle is read. Make becomes made. Sing becomes sung. And see, seen. Let's do some practice. Let's fill in these blanks with the appropriate forms of the verbs in brackets. Now, a lot of coffee produced in Brazil. Let's try to form a passive sentence using the verb in bracket. So, a lot of coffee is produced in Brazil. What about the following example? A lot of dogs in England ban. A lot of dogs in England are called ban. Let's continue. 1,000,000 drawings used in The Lion King. When we use the passive construction, we've got the following sentence. 1,000,000 drawings are used in The Lion King. Simba is found by his friend Nala. Now let's complete each sentence in the passive. People eat millions of bars of chocolate every day. Let's transform this statement into the passive. Millions of bars of chocolate, so let's check the form, are eaten every day. What about the following example? We plant hundreds of trees every year. Now, when we want to make this sentence passive, we put this information at the first position in the sentence. So we've got hundreds of trees and the verb are planted every year. People read millions of newspapers every day. This is an active sentence. And when we want to transform this statement into the passive one, it is as follows. Millions of newspapers are read every day. Smith & Co. published Tom's new book. Tom's new book, let's check, is published by Smith & Co. Now, let's focus on some of the passive voice rules. The object, as we already said, becomes the subject. The subject becomes the passive agent. Auxiliary verb to be, am, is, are, plus the main verb in the past participle. and only transitive verbs can form passive. Now, let's explain what transitive verbs are. A transitive verb is a verb that can take a direct object. In other words, the action of a transitive verb is done to someone or something. So, let's pay attention to one example where we have transitive verb. She sings that song beautifully. So, let's see which functions these words have in this sentence. She has the function of the subject. Sings is the verb. This verb, sing, is the transitive verb. Why? Because it requires direct object. And the direct object in this sentence is that song. And we've got here beautifully, which is the adverb of manner. Now, I already said that a transitive verb is a verb that can take a direct object. In other words, the action of a transitive verb is done to someone or something. Now, let's talk about intransitive verbs. In this sentence, we've got she sings beautifully. Now, what's different here? Well, there is no object. So, we've got she, which is the subject, sings beautifully. In this sentence, this verb is intransitive because there is no object. There are some special cases. We don't need to use the passive agent when the subject of the active sentence is people, one, someone, somebody, or they. For example, they always welcome new members. This is an active sentence. And when we transform this sentence into the passive, it sounds like this. New members are always welcomed. In the brackets, you can say by them. This structure is passive agent. And passive agent, in this case, is not necessary because it is indefinite, which means it's not specific. Now, when the subject of the active sentence is a subject pronoun, you must change it to an equivalent object pronoun as the passive agent. So, I becomes me. You becomes you, or it remains you. It's got the same form. He becomes him. She becomes her. It becomes its. We becomes us. You remains you, and they becomes them. For example, in this film, he plays one of the police officers. In this first sentence, he is the subject. But when we transform this sentence into the passive one, this subject becomes the doer of the action and it needs to be placed at the end position in the sentence. And this he now becomes him. Let's see some examples. Positive or affirmative form. The office is cleaned every day. Glass is made from sand. Stamps are sold in a post office. Many accidents are caused by dangerous driving. A garage is a place where cars are repaired. And now, let's see some questions. So let's focus on interrogative form. How often are these rooms cleaned? Are we allowed to park here? How is this word pronounced? How many languages are spoken in Switzerland? And what is silver used for? Now, we've got here Some negative sentences. This room isn't cleaned very often. I am not often invited to the parties. He isn't given much money by his parents. This shop isn't well supplied with fruits and vegetables. And those children are not looked after properly. This is the end of this presentation. Thank you.